California is has one of the toughest school vaccination laws in the nation, and that's new this week. Governor Jerry Brown signing the controversial bill, which eliminates exemptions for personal beliefs, but leaves medical exemptions in place. So nearly all public school kids will be required to get vaccinated. We want to talk a little bit more about this with the medical panel. Dr. Chuck Williams is joining us, an educational psychologist and director of graduate studies at Lincoln University. Also with us, Dr. Kathleen Birchelman. She's a pediatrician, also a mother of 5. And Dr. Frank Esper is a pediatric infectious diseases specialist at University Hospitals Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. It's great to have you both and have the Brady Bunch panels back up on the screen so we can properly discuss this. That's right. Good-looking family.
Was there a black kid on there?
A good-looking family, Dr. Chuck. A good-looking family. We're all part of it.
I want the middle square.
Generally, all of you agree that vaccinations are good for our kids. But Dr. Birchelman, I'd like to start with you. All 5 of your children are vaccinated, but you say legislation really isn't the way to go about this. You feel it should be approached differently. Why?
Well, our First Amendment rights are important. It's the First Amendment for a reason. And we've enjoyed herd immunity in the United States for so many, many years without infringing on anybody's right to free exercise of religion. This problem came about not because of a very, very tiny people with a true religious-based objection to vaccination. This problem came about because of all the people who really abused their First Amendment rights and claimed religious exemption when they really had a personal or philosophical exemption, when they really were believing in a false science.
Let me ask you, Dr. Esper, in all of this, if you actually had the families that opted out because of religious exemption, would that be enough to not have the herd immunity that you need to keep everybody else safe?
Well, the answer is a lot of times, and we've actually done these studies where we find that the people who opt out because of philosophical beliefs or those who are opting out because of religious beliefs, they do have a tendency to cluster together. And so what you get is these little micro communities within a very small radius who have very low vaccination rates. And so this puts that particular community at increased risk for spreading the disease amongst themselves as well as to surrounding communities. And that's kind of what happened in the most recent measles outbreak earlier this year.
And Dr. Chuck, it's not just about herd immunity that we're talking about. It's also about groupthink. And I'd like to ask you about this as a psychologist. And we've talked about this before, that there's been this idea that these vaccinations can cause different conditions in children like autism. It hasn't been proven by fact, but yes, the groupthink and one idea has really captured the attention of many parents rightfully and wrongly. How do we get past that part of it and move to the fact-based information that these vaccinations are safe for our kids while leaving room for parents to exercise their own rights as parents to make decisions for their families?
Well, Jenna, as you said, the issue of groupthink and group psychology, those two things are very important. What we know is that we had folks who are well known who can influence the group because they're a celebrity. Jenny McCarthy, hint, hint, when they get the herd going in one direction, in this instance, in my opinion, it was very unhealthy, very unwise. It caused some sort of public health crisis or scare in California and maybe in other states. So to turn that around, as you said, the psychology would require that we have another significant person in the community like Jenny McCarthy who has some sort of celebrity gravitas who can say to the group that leader was wrong, I'm right, vaccinate your kids. It's not only good for your kids, but it's good for all kids, and it's a public health imperative.
And Dr. Chuck, it seems like you're agreeing with Dr. Birchelman that really in order to change the way we think about it, we can't really just rely on laws, but we also have to rely on education.
Right, right. Don't forget the way this whole thing started was we had famous people like Jenny McCarthy using junk science to influence the group. They were influenced because they were underinformed. Some parents, and I know Dr. Kathleen and Dr. Frank know about this because they serve children, are very afraid, very concerned about the health and welfare of their kids, and they should. My sister just had a brand new little girl. My niece, Morgan Taylor, was born a couple of weeks ago, and she worries about everything. If that baby coughs, she wants to know what's going on. So I get it. However, we have to make sure that we are ensuring that our kids are in the best place possible to grow up to be healthy, productive citizens, and vaccinations make that work. That famous person, Jenny McCarthy, led the group down the wrong path. Now we need someone else who's also got gravitas to lead the group down another
Dr.
path
Chuck,
so we can turn this around.
With all due respect, do we need to take away our First Amendment rights to achieve that? We're all for vaccination here, but there's a way. There's other states like Illinois that are just making it a lot harder to use a religious exemption, and they're just requiring cleric signature, and they've done away with personal exemptions. So there's other ways to achieve this.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but since you brought up rights in the state, don't forget, if we use the First Amendment, for example, I can't yell fire in a crowded building. I can't use fighting words. So there's a certain point where our rights as individuals stop and the overall welfare of the society begins, and that is the job of the state to step in to protect.
But we enjoyed herd immunity in a very safe community for so many years until we had this groupthink problem based on false science. It's not about religion or free exercise of religion. It's about groupthink on false science.
Well, and that's Dr. Esper, I'd like to get you in here because one of the things that you've said is that as someone that really deals with infectious diseases, that we actually do need, in your opinion, a national strategy just to keep our country safe. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Here's the issue. Okay, the measles is still predominant throughout the world. So is a lot of other communicable diseases that we have enjoyed holding away from a lot of the population of the United States. These germs are bombarding our country all the time because people from outside the United States are traveling into the United States. And so it is our vaccinations and our vaccination rate within our community, in this case the community of the United States, that is protecting our citizens from those measles, those mumps, all those other kinds of diseases. And if we have certain pockets, certain holes in this armor of protection that we have in the United States, we are going to see more and more outbreaks, and people will get very,
so
very
let me
sick.
ask you,
it's
this will be
we have to watch out for.
Final question for everybody, and Dr. Esper, I'll start with you, and then we'll go around the circle. Do you think instead of state laws on this, because we do see California, and it's a surprise at the beginning, if we'd covered this a year ago, we wouldn't have thought that California would have done this. Now, California says, you guys got to be vaccinated. Do you think there should be a federal law? I mean, should this really go on a national level? Would that be the right fix? Dr. Esper, you first.
You know, certainly I would like that to be the case. However, our Constitution is not set up that way. The national organizations, the Centers for Disease Control, the National Institutes of Health, they give the recommendations. But it is up to each state to ratify those recommendations, and it's because each of those states do things a little bit differently is why we have such variation from state to state and from place to place. Certainly, I think what we need to do as a country is to ensure that we increase the vaccination rates any way that we can. And I don't think it's going to be done through a federal mandate, although that would certainly make it a lot easier.
Dr. Chuck?
I'm going to say it should be federal, and go even further and say it should be a 2016 campaign issue. Why? Speaking of psychology, this groupthink, these folks who are part of that, these anti-vaxxers, so to speak, they could do what we call law or statute shopping and go to a state where they don't have to vaccinate. And what if they all coalesce, say, in Kansas, where the laws are lax, the state laws, and the next thing you know, we see a measles outbreak, which obviously would be horrible for everybody. So there should be a national law. Congress should step in. It should be a campaign issue, in my opinion, to protect the children and the overall public health of the United States of America.
Interesting. Dr. Berschelman.
I respect the Constitution, and I certainly respect the First Amendment and the free exercise of religion. I think we do need to go state to state to state, increase public education, and increase vaccination rates. And I strongly support a change in personal belief exemptions while supporting people, the very tiny number of people with a true religious exemption. I think we can achieve better vaccination rates through state legislation without infringing on anyone's free exercise of religion.
It's a very interesting debate. I know firsthand as a new mom, you look at your baby and you think, wait a minute, what is the right call? Even when you thought you had clarity going into it, sometimes these medical questions, you know, it does make you take a second look. By the way,
Jenna, quickly, can I just say,
I will, Dr. Berschelman, quickly, Dr. Chuck.
Jenna, I just wanted to thank you and Fox News for the support during the passing of my father a couple of weeks ago. It meant a lot. Thank you.
We really have been thinking about you, Dr. Chuck, and we care a great deal about you. And I know we don't all look like we're part of the same family, but we do feel that way, you know, even though we have the boxes.
Agree.
Even though we have the boxes up. Nice to have you all. We look forward to having you back. Thank you.
Thank you.